teachers of Reddit, what is the smartest / most creative way of cheating that you've seen? I'm a high school teacher, but this story is about my own high school math teacher playing us and cheating. It was an honors algebra geometry class, and it was well known that Mr. D reused the same questions every year, just changed the numbers. He made a big deal about making sure we all gave our exam papers back to him after we had looked at our scores and gone over everything together to prevent cheating for the next year. Well, of course, some of my classmates got their hands on a complete set of tests from the previous year. Soon, everyone had a set. Before each exam, we would sit together and make sure we knew how to solve every problem on that test so we could do it on the real exam with different numbers. Years later, when I became a teacher myself, I saw Mr. D at a funeral. I confessed to him that this is what we used to do. He smirked and said, "Who do you think leaked the test packet to get you to study?" Mr. D had figured out that kids won't study if the teacher suggests it, but if they think they're getting away with something, they totally will. So he managed to get a test packet out and circulating as contraband. Blew my mind. Mr. D only play 4D chess. Last name, D first name, Mr. 4. This is amazing. As soon as I read we would sit together and make sure we knew how to solve every problem, I was like, wait, that sounds like a study group. God, that reminds me of the Key and Peele skit about robbing a bank by getting a job. College physics, girl with a really intricate tattoo on her leg, wrote formulas in between the tattoo lines. Even looking closely you couldn't tell, unless you knew what you were looking for. You could tell it was test day because she wore shorts. Reminds me of Prison Break. Immediately what I thought of too. Literally watching it RN as I read this. My BO department examines any visible tattoos before lab exams. Thought that was a little over the top, but I guess there's a reason for it. In school I found a pen that you could store a piece of paper inside. Wrote all the formulas for a test on it in minuscule handwriting. The process of doing that made me remember them all, so I never actually looked at the pen in the test. Luckily at university we got given a huge folder with pretty much every formula needed written inside it for exams. Knowing what formulas exist and how when to use them is much more important than endless memorization. That's what always bothered me about not being allowed formula sheets in tests. The formulas are sometimes a little difficult to memorize, but knowing when and where to apply them is infinitely more useful and is the real purpose. You're gonna Google them after you're done school anyway, lol, but the knowledge of use and problem solving is invaluable. There was a class that allowed you to bring one sheet of handwritten notes to exams. I knew a guy that created a font of his own handwriting and used to print the entire study guide onto a piece of notebook paper, front and back. He even set the font color to pencil gray and managed to get the margins and spacing exactly right to look like it had been handwritten. Modern problems require modern solutions. Age-old problems. Build a wall. No thanks, Humpty Dumpty. Trumpty Dumpty? I had a professor who not only didn't have the ability to teach the course to us, told us that we can bring in any size cheat sheet for our final exam. He was serious about this. Final exam came, and there was this one girl who only had a single piece of notebook paper, while the rest of the class has multiple pages stapled together. Someone brought in a scroll. I brought in a poster. The girl complained how it was unfair for her to stay up all night actually studying the topics. I stayed up all night too, trying to figure out how to work the examples I printed out. The professor listened to her, even though the entire class protested against her. To be honest though, I decided a poster as a joke. I wanted to have a scroll as well, but I really thought he was letting us have it. My girlfriend works for a dental exam company, which are obviously super high stakes exams. Since the exams are worldwide, they have actually found people from one time zone paying people from another time zone to email questions to them right before the exam starts. There's actually a movie with this same plot called Bad Genius, where a student takes a test in a different country that is a few hours ahead and texts the answers back to others that have the test in a few hours. I watched this movie. It's inspired by a bunch of different cases of creative cheating in Asia. Not cheating, But back in the pre-internet days I once placed a midnight phone call from the eastern US to the reference librarian at the Honolulu Public Library to get a quick piece of critical information I needed to finish a term paper that was due at 8 AM. The internet is a blessing. Can't imagine going through college without it tbh. This happened with the app Exams last year. I'm pretty sure there was a subreddit for it, and when College Board found out, they forced the PPL in the different time zone to stay in the class until the other time zone started. Yeah, I took app Exams years ago in Hawaii. Questions would be online 3 hours before the exam if you looked. Not the student, but the teacher. So, the teacher, let's call him Mr. A, had a reputation for being a phenomenal teacher who had every student engaged invested in his class, no matter how mundane the subject. Anytime he asked a question, every student's hand would shoot in the air with them shouting things like "call on me" or "I know the answer." Simply, Mr. A developed a reputation in the district as one of its best teachers. Fast forward a couple years, and I'm grabbing coffee with Mr. A, and I ask him, "What's your trick? How did you get every student bought in?" His response, "Well, I told the kids every time we had a visitor in class, I need you all to raise your hand, like I was giving away free candy. But if you don't know the answer, raise your left hand. If you do know it, raise your right hand, so I know who to call on, and we all look good." Worked like a charm. Finnish schools also used this method when we were still occupied by Russia in order to look good to the inspectors. Edit. Finland was under Russian rule, not occupied. Sorry, I couldn't proofread and English isn't my native language. But without the English, I'm guessing. Damn. Genius. My exams that used a graphic calculator T84 required us to show the examiners a proof of reset screen before the papers started, so instead of actually studying for my papers, I painstakingly redrew the proof of reset screen pixel by pixel in the T84's pixel art program and stored all my notes in it. Our calculator had a storage feature too. Once you open the battery cover it turns off, and on next start it shows the reset screen. We had to open the cover and let the teacher press OK to reset. No way of cheating here. If it's a T calculator, set a really simple program to launch on startup with a fake reset screen and OK box. You all are such sophisticated cheaters. I just stuck a cheat sheet in the T cover and peeked at it when the teacher wasn't looking. Thanks, oblivious high school statistics teacher. Old school. Old school cheating was actually learning the material. Make a program with notes, archive it, and it will survive resets. Beautiful. During a spelling test, "Miss, how do you spell piano?" The spelling word was piano. Teacher went on autopilot and started spelling the word. One time in the 3rd grade there was a girl that didn't hear the word the teacher said on a spelling test, so she leaned over to me and asked what she said. Me being the good student I was, there was no way I was going to talk during a test. So you know what I did? I fucking wrote it down and passed it to her, not thinking I had just spelled the word out and that would be considered cheating. Promptly I was caught doing this by the teacher and realized what an idiot I was. Edit. Silver? I don't even know her. Elaborate excuses told to teachers part 2. You have to live the lie to make it believable. This user is an example for us all. One time I pulled the spelling list out to see which word we were on because I didn't hear the teacher. Got ratted out immediately. Imagining this whole scenario is just hilarious. That's actually hilarious. Good for that kid too. Shoot your shot. I got out in the spelling bee in 5th grade because I couldn't tell if they were saying ladder or latter, and apparently you can't ask, is that with a D or with a T? I was grading a written assignment that had a 1,000 word count minimum, and one particular paper just felt really short to me despite Word telling me it was roughly 1,100 words long. On a hunch I hit CTRL-A and sure enough after the paper concluded there was a lot of white nonsense text on a white background. That's gotta be the dumbest form of lengthening a paper there is. If you email a document, one click foils a plan, and if you turn in a hard copy, the white text doesn't even count. If you turn in a physical copy, you won't have a strictly enforced word count, probably a page count if anything. and 910 students don't email their papers, there will be a turn-in portal somewhere that typically doesn't detect the white text. I had physical copies in undergrad with enforced strict word counts. I barely hit the minimum once BC Word was counting my footnotes as words and I didn't catch it, and the tar went through and counted each word in the body of the paper and docked me the like 300 words that were from citations. Just curious, how long ago was your undergrad? That was quite a serious tar. Word counting is tedious work. 4-line average times total lines is remarkably good for any curious. If you're really dedicated and are turning in an email copy, you can use blank characters that most word processors detect as characters but look like spaces. When I was in high school I bought a pen like this one where each time you clicked the message inside would change. I took it apart and was able to tape paper over the tube and fit things that I would need to help me on some quizzes and tests. Lol, how is that made for anything except cheating? It's a promotional item that salespeople give away for marketing. They can get way more elaborate. I had a pen like this once, but I took it apart to see what was inside and quickly destroyed it. I had a pen like this in high school that I would cover with masking tape and write on. Never got caught,